Hello and good morning. So today we will start our class or week 7 on mobile design. So for today we will describe the different principles of effective design for mobile application. And then another CLO that we are going to address today is to develop a user-friendly mobile application by applying mobile design concept and principles. And then finally is to solve the mobile app design problem in a group by suggesting new ideas and solutions. So our objective for today's lesson is to explain the composition of layout to display design on a small screen such as a mobile device or mobile phone, and then to explain the appropriate concept of audio, video, and animation format and content for a mobile device, and then to differentiate between streaming and downloaded content. So we look into this book. So content from today's lesson are taken from this book, Building Mobile Experience by Frank Bentley and Edward Barrett. Okay, just look into this section about graphic and media design because we are dividing this lecture into three parts or this e-tutorial into three parts. Okay, we will look into the graphic and media design first. So here we have layout and composition and building responsive website. And then we also have streaming down and downloadable content. So in the forum question, what do you understand about layout and composition? And then why you have to explain why this layout and composition is so important in designing a good UI. And then how do you add elements of audio, video, and animation in your mobile content? So, in a basic principle of layout and composition, you may have to be able to explain the concept of proximity, white space, alignment, contrast, and repetition. So proximity is a key principle in visual grouping. So it can override other cues like colors and shape similarity. So in this case, related element should be placed closer together. So in this case, if you have a circle over here, it should be placed with circle, and then the triangle should be placed closer together. So unrelated elements should be spaced apart, and this is why it is widely applied in user interface design. So we are going to look into the law of proximity in action. Okay, such as this. Okay, you can see that the shapes, okay, are being arranged closer together. Okay, the shapes being arranged closer together are visually much more striking than the shapes not uh, that are not related together. Okay, and then this is a group that are not related at all. So you can see here, we can have the circle, all of circle of the same color are grouped together, and then all the shape that are within the same color are grouped together, and then the other miscellaneous shapes that are being cast aside. Okay, cast aside and then being grouped also together. Okay, here is how the law of proximity are in action for a grid-like interface. So this one show unsuitable way to align your user interface where all of your design element are within the same spacing. So by adding the law of proximity, we add a different spacing for items that should be grouped together. So you can see that here the product name and the description and the button are related to this photo. So it uses it is separated with a different spacing over here and over here. And then the element over here are separated with smaller, okay, with a smaller spacing over here, over here, over here. Right, next we can see that how to manage proximity UI design over here. Okay, this is a spacing. So for the Android, okay, for the Android design, the spacing for number one over here is should be 16 BIP, 16 density pixel. Okay, 16 density pixel. This is the margin. And then for another standard in Android application, your screen can be divided in either two parts over here like this, two, or in four parts with a spacing of 16 density pixel. Okay, over here or over here if it is divided into four parts. But you can also divide it into two parts, like over here, okay, two, and then two over here with a single spacing at the center. Alright, okay. So here we can have proximity implicit containment. Okay, this is also taken from official Google Android developer website. So here we can have a huge design, okay, a huge photo design. And then we have a card over here that occupy both of these area with a single spacing at the center. And then we also have the text, okay, which does not exceed or does not flow against this spacing. So this is to maintain the uh, illusion of this UI is pleasing, right? Okay. This is also an additional, okay, with the additional of icon, okay, over here and over here. So you can see that when you add icon, you should also add a spacing over here. So this is what we call as implicit containment. Okay, next we have similarity principles. Okay, in the concept of similarity principle, key visual attribute enhancing similarity should be color, the strongest. Okay, colors, you should separate by colors first, and then by the size, and then by the shape, which is least influential. So whatever it is, you should if you have all the item with the same shape, you should separate them by color, and then separate them by size. But if the size is all the same, you separate them by its shape. Okay, by its shape. Okay, this one, it is separated by the color first. Okay, they are all within the same color, and then they are grouped together by the same shape. Okay, by the same shape. This is the shape, and then this is the same shape. Okay, the same shape over here in their own cluster. So in the similarity principle, although it is weaker than proximity, similarity is still a strong perceptual principle where the user can identify patterns and meanings based on the visual similarity. Okay, we can also have persistent design such as identical primary button, which aids recognition and usability. Okay, here we see the principle of similarity in action. Okay, we are using the same product placement. Okay, product placement where it is already separated by its proximity by proximity principle. Okay, here we can have the separation between the product, but this time, okay, the visual elements are being enhanced further. The separation of visual element is being enhanced further by enforcing principle of similarity. So remember, Okay, the first and foremost principle of similarity is the color that separated the functionality. So here we can see that the color are being inverted. Okay, inverted for the button. So button remove is being changed to an outline. Okay, over here. So the color is contrast between edit and remove. Alright, then we have a principle of periodicity. The principle of periodicity enable user to recognize user patterns. So there are a lot of things inside our life that are based on periodic or things that are being repeated over a long period of time. Okay, or sometimes over a short period of time, it's being repeated. For example, like our week, okay, are being repeated every 7 days, days of the week. And then we also have year, okay, that are also being repeated, okay, and then the time or daylight cycle are being repeated daily. So periodicity create rhythm through repeated and evenly spaced element. So you can see that this is also a basis of periodicity. So you can see here the basis of periodicity in action where, okay, in this example, I'm going to draw a little bit over here. You can see that here, okay, this is being separated, okay, things that are repeated, right? There are things that can be repeated, okay. So you can see that here the two, okay, the two element over here are being repeated here, here, and the four elements are being repeated here, here, and here. So this is the principle of periodicity. So common element inside the UI, you can see that, okay, you can see that certain product are contained within a certain category or certain items, okay, or that are more popular than other items. So these enforce principle of periodicity. So you can see here over here also 1 year equals to 365 days. But if you list all the days in 300 as a separate 365 individual days, then people will have a hard time to choose. And in order to trick the mind of the user, you have to separate it into several, sub, okay, several sub section, okay, just like here for 12 months, and then each month have 30 days. Right, next, the principle of layout and composition is the clever use of white space. So this is this is related to proximity. So sometimes white space is called as negative space, where the white space can allow user to navigate, okay, to navigate easily. So this empty space located in between element in the layout, okay, it helps user to navigate. So the most common empty space that you encounter is the margin on the left and right side of your mobile device layout. Okay, you can see that from left and right side of the mobile user layout, where the Android would advise you, Google develop Android developer website would advise you to, okay, to separate, okay, to separate the layout from the edges of the screen. This is to ensure that all the element inside your mobile application are clickable. So these are also this principle also apply to here, where the mobile application should only put the critical icon or critical elements, okay, on the mobile application. So you should eliminate any non-critical functionality. So here we can have it. So white space encourage developer to create an application with more spaces, because this could reduce cognitive overload to the user. So if you recall, in the principle of mobile user characteristic, you can see that mobile user characteristic is always distracted, and then they have limited attention span. So by implementing a white space, it could reduce the cognitive overload of this mobile user, because they always use the mobile application on the go. And then this would also improve readability and content scanning and help user focus on a key element. And it could also support a clean and organized interface, while also guide the user eye to the important content. So the white space in mobile UI also separate the UI section clearly and establish a content grouping and a flow. So here we have a design trend, okay, design trend for that implement negative white space much more effectively. So you can see that the area with colors are being free, so it become much more cleaner, okay, cleaner design. So it doesn't look as crowded as the previous design. You can see that the use of white spaces. Right, this one also uses white spaces. So white spaces also complements the use the principles of periodicity, and then principles of proximity, where the news whether the section are being separated with a fixed amount of padding or fixed amounts of margin. So you can see here this the separation between the header and then the major element, visual element, the same over here and over here, right? Okay. So next we are going to look into white space common mistakes. So white space isn't a wasted space. Okay, white space exists for a reason. So you use white space to separate between unrelated visual element. And then white space are being used also to group together certain elements that are similar together. And then the minimalist design does not mean an empty design, but it's actually a useful design element, or we can say that it is a practical design element. So it's not intentional, and the white space use are intentional and not random. So you do not use white space just because you do not have any idea to put anything inside your application, but instead you use white space to actually to encourage user to use your application by reducing their cognitive overload. Doesn't mean that if your application have a lot of white space, it means that you do not have any what idea to add inside your application. So the best practices of using white space is to maintain the spacing between the text line and blocks, and then balance between the content density and clarity, and then retest spacing on real devices for usability. Alright, okay, next we are going to combine these two principles, which is the contrast and repetition. So what is the UI, what is contrast and repetition in UI design? So we are going to focus more on contrast now. So contrast is the visual differences or between different parts of your application or different parts of your visual elements. Okay, visual elements. So contrast can be applied using the most common way is by enforcing different color or striking color, and then enforcing different size, shapes, typography, and spacing. So contrast is actually is not a new concept, but we have been using the contrast principle back in proximity and white space. Okay, back in proximity and white space. So if you recall, in the principle of proximity, we have actually been arranged we have actually arranged the visual elements in color, size, and shape in order to emphasize their contrast. So contrast can actually separate visual elements from their functionality. So you can see here over here. So this is an example of good contrast and bad contrast. So the good contrast means that the color, okay, the contrasting color should have a different or should have the same, okay, the same level or actually uh, the same energy, the color energy, the same color energy or more energy than the normal button. So this one you see that the contrasting button is looks weaker, okay, than the normal color. This one is about the same, and this one the contrasting color is stronger, okay, or darker, okay, than the normal button. So this is the best way to create contrast. The better way, so that is a good way, or the better way is maintaining uh, the same energy, okay, the same color energy, or the same, almost the same brightness, okay, almost the same brightness. This one is bad because the color is weaker, or uh, it has less value, okay, than this normal color. So contrast would enhance readability and legibility, and then it draws attention to the key element. So you can see here in the same in this contrast. So another example of contrast is what we can see over here. This is also contrast. Okay, display contrast, okay, between two buttons, where the buttons here is the color of the button here is inverted. It is inverted. Right. So example effective contrast for typography also is by reusing, okay, the light text on dark background, and then reusing larger font size for headings, and then we can put a bold color for primary action, and then visualize the differences between active and inactive buttons. So here are the example for the contrast, okay, contrast with UI design. So I'm going to click this. Okay, sorry, I have to turn off my pointer in order to click this. Okay, you can see here in this website. Okay, you can see here how the contrasts are being used. So by using this example of a light up apartment, okay, a light up apartment to show to illustrate the contrast principles. Okay, here is also the same element of reusing contrast. Okay, you can see that some places are being compact together, which is full, and then some are being spaced together. And then we have a contrast of color between selected button and unselected button. Okay, this is day and night. Okay, day and night. Okay, application. Okay, this is also a contrast. Okay, the use of serif and sans serif fonts, and then the color at the background. So the choice of blue and orange is also being noted as contrast. Okay, as noted as a contrast. This is also a design. Okay, should be also being contrast. Right. Okay, going back to this. Okay, going back to our e-tutorial. Okay, now we have elements of repetition in UI design. So repetition means the reuse of consistent design element or widgets in your own application. Okay, in your own application. So you can see over here how this is being implemented uh, in a mobile application. So you can see here some of these application reuse the same icon over here. Okay, we have this icon, this icon, this icon is being used the same. So this is how the element, the same design element are being reused. Okay, across this different view within the same mobile application. Okay, we can see here. And then we can also see the same UI element are also being reused. So you can see the read up over here. The profile page on Instagram remain the same no matter which profile you visit. So this is what we call it as repetition. Alright, okay, we are going to stop a little bit, okay, over here and take a break. And then we shall continue with our e-tutorial on audio and video content for mobile device. So you can refer to another video.